Go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/online therapy to get 20% off your first month of cognitive behavioural therapy, with weekly sessions online with a therapist, in addition to worksheets, a journal, meditation and yoga videos, and unlimited messaging. There's strong evidence that CBT can help people who hoard, and accessing therapy online can be affordable and accessible. Find out more and get your discount at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/online therapy.
A lot can happen in the next 3 years. Like a chatbot may be your new best friend. But what won't change? Needing health insurance. United Healthcare Tri-Term Medical Plans are available for these changing times. Underwritten by Golden Rule Insurance Company, they offer budget-friendly, flexible coverage for people who are in between jobs or missed open enrollment. The plans last nearly 3 years in some states, with access to a nationwide network of doctors and hospitals. So for whatever tomorrow brings, United Healthcare Tri-Term Medical Plans may be for you. Learn more at uh1.com. Normally, being a little extra might be a bit much, but not when it comes to healthcare. That's why United Healthcare's Health Protector Guard fixed indemnity insurance plans, underwritten by Golden Rule Insurance Company, supplement your primary plan so you manage out-of-pocket costs. Learn more at uh1.com.
Say hello to a new era of mental health care. Cerebral is here to help you achieve your mental wellness goals with professional therapy and medication management support. 100% online. You'll experience the all-new Cerebral Way, an innovative approach to mental wellness designed around you. You'll get a personalized treatment plan from a therapist, prescriber, or both in a safe and judgment-free space. Your Cerebral therapist or prescriber will outline a customized plan with clear milestones along the way, so you can get to feeling your best. With Cerebral, you're not alone in your mental health journey. We're here to empower you to live a fulfilling life. So take that first step towards a brighter future and sign up today at Cerebral.com/podcast and use code ACAST to get 15% off your first month. Offer only valid on monthly plans. Other exclusions may apply. Offer ends July 31st, 2024. See site for details.
Welcome to the Overcome Compulsive Hoarding with That Hoarder podcast. I am drowning in stuff and trying to find a way out.
So I want to start
Listen as I explore the issues and delve deep as somebody profoundly affected by hoarding disorder. Find out more, including links to subscribe to the podcast, at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk, and find the links there to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and all over the place. I received a donation from a listener, and it was so generous, like a really generous amount, enough to make me cry a little bit, and I'm not a big crier. And I don't know who it's from because they donated anonymously, and so this is my way of saying thank you to them, because I found it so validating and affirming of what I'm doing. This is not an easy project. It's helping me for sure, but it's also really tough. And the fact that someone who presumably listens thinks enough of it to send a good number of quid over my way is honestly so touching and so moving. And so whoever you are, thank you so much. Honestly, you're amazing. If you're listening and you also want to support the podcast, and that doesn't have to be with money, there are a number of ways you can help. You can find out how to do that at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support. And I'm also going to read one of my other reviews that has come through because you're all amazing. And the more reviews I get, the more people will hear about the podcast. So thank you. So this is from Booksack. That sounds almost rude, who left 5 stars and said, great insight. Thank you for being so brave and creating this podcast. My great aunt was a hoarder, though we didn't even have that awful name for the disorder at the time. She was a genius microbiologist, but she died living in her own front yard after she couldn't go inside anymore. It breaks my heart. I want to say your dispatches are so accessible and insightful. I think people could empathise with hoarding more if they listened to your show instead of watching exploitative reality shows. Thanks for your honesty. I hope with more awareness, healthcare professionals will create better treatment options for this issue. Thank you so much. Again, it's so validating to what I'm doing. I agree, first of all, that Hoarder is a horrible name. I use it reluctantly. Secondly, I'm so sorry about your great aunt. That does sound like a heartbreaking situation. And it's the worst case scenario for all of us. To not even be able to go inside our own homes anymore is just the worst. And I'm glad you think it's accessible. That's one of my goals. And insightful, that's another of my goals. And yes, finally, reality shows are horribly exploitative on this topic. And I agree with you there. So thank you, Buxac, B-U-X-A-C, anyway. I appreciate your support. So I'm going to do one of my occasional series where I share with you my success of the week and my weird dilemma of the week. So my success of the week, you may remember weeks and weeks and weeks ago, my success of the week, or something I shared at least, was that I had cleared my bedside table, and rather than having years worth of crap precariously piled on it, just a few carefully chosen things were put there instead. Like a pen holder, room for my water bottles, and a couple more things. And that was ages ago. And what is massively encouraging is that it still has those things on and is not cluttered up with everything else. One of my big fears, something that is definitely a roadblock for me with this process, is that I fear that there's no point putting all this work in because I won't be able to maintain it. And I know this is only a bedside table, but if I can maintain a decluttered bedside table, then maybe I can maintain a decluttered bed and a decluttered bedroom and ultimately a decluttered house. So that's my success of the week, and it sounds small, but I'm pretty proud of it. My weird dilemma of the week, which I share just to highlight to people who aren't hoarders just how weird our thinking is. I kept feeling sick in the mornings, not pregnant, thank God, and I couldn't work out why I felt sick in the mornings. And then I realised that it had started round about the time I started taking some new multivitamins, which I take in the morning. And so I tested a few days without the multivitamins in the morning, and I stopped feeling sick. Great. Because nobody wants to feel sick. So that would be a success. But then, of course, being me, having hoarding disorder, I couldn't throw away the vitamins.
Why?
I knew I didn't want to ever take them again because they'd make me feel sick, but I couldn't throw them away. And so I wanted to offer them to somebody else who might be able to use them. So I asked a couple of friends, but the way I asked them was to say, I've got these multivitamins, they've been making me feel sick, do you want them? And both of those friends completely understandably said, why would I want some multivitamins that might make me feel sick? And that's a legitimate response. So I haven't passed them on. But I couldn't throw them away because there's half a pack of perfectly good multivitamins, except that of course they're not perfectly good, for me at least, but I couldn't throw them away because I was going to say they cost money, but literally a couple of pounds. And I kept thinking, well, what if I run out of other multivitamins? Maybe I'll want to take them then. But nothing terrible happens if you don't take multivitamins for a week before you stock up. And even if I did run out, why would I take the nausea-inducing ones? I wouldn't. Anyway, eventually I did throw them out. I threw out, there's probably about 10 or 15 left in the pack. And they went in the bin, and it was hard. It was a really It's ridiculous, but it preyed on my mind for weeks what to do with this stupid pot of stupid tablets. But they've gone, but that was my weird dilemma of the week. So my main topic this week that I'm going to talk about is how to avoid getting distracted. I am sure I'm not the only person who sits down to sort through a pile of books and then starts reading one of the books, or sits down to deal with some paperwork and gets engrossed in a letter that I find in there, or my phone beeps and before I know it, I've been on Twitter for 20 minutes. It's difficult. It's difficult to dehoard when you are distractible, and I don't think I have ADHD, but I know there seems to be quite a big connection between ADHD and hoarding, so I suspect a number of you listeners do have ADHD and are hoarders, so that must make it even more difficult to stay on task. And it doesn't help that this is a task that we don't want to do. It's a task that's quite difficult, and it's a task that can be quite boring. How many boxes can you tear up and put into rubbish bags before you lose the will to live? It's not a fun task. Like if you go out for a drink with your best friend, you probably won't get that distracted because you're having good conversation and you are having a great time. But when you're sitting in front of a pile of things you've avoided for the last 12 years, you can see why distraction feels like a better option, can't you? So there's a guy who has a business podcast called John Lee Dumas, and he uses the word focus to highlight how he avoids distraction, with the letters in the word focus standing for follow one course until success. So the thinking behind this is to focus on one thing until you've completely mastered it, and only then move on to the next thing. Don't let yourself, it's easy to say, isn't it? Don't let yourself go off on a tangent, but really, really, really try. Try and be conscious at least. When you're conscious about these things, that helps immensely. If you can just spot yourself thinking, oh, there's a tangent that my brain nearly took me on, let's stay on the task at hand. And just notice when it happens, that's a start. Even if you can't always talk yourself back onto the original plan, start noticing. And when you notice it happens, see if there's anything in common between the times it happens. Is it when you've done more than 20 minutes in a row and your brain's just tired? Is it a particular type of sorting? Is it when you're sorting through food or dealing with the mail? If there are patterns, see if you can work out what's going on there. What is it about sorting out food or the mail that seems to particularly lead to you being distractible when you're doing that? It might be something deeper than how it looks. Your initial reaction might be, well, clearly what's going on is that I don't want to do this. But if you ask yourself questions, like what is it about? Okay, let's go back to your mail, to your post. What is it about sorting through the post that might be leading you to be more distractible? Now, I know for me, because I have a real problem with getting very behind in opening my post, I then get scared that it's going to contain terrifying things that I'm too late to deal with. So maybe I missed getting a letter about a parking fine because I didn't open the post. And then because I missed the letter about the parking fine has now doubled and they're taking me to court and it's all terrifying and awful. Of course I don't want to open the post when I have that kind of fear in my head. And of course that's a very self-perpetuating thing. So I then don't open the post again. And then there's even more time has passed since my imaginary parking fine. And by now, there's an arrest warrant out for me in 20 countries that could have all been prevented by me opening my post one day last year. Now, I'm being slightly facetious there, but honestly, not much. That's the kind of thinking that I will go down that makes me avoid opening the post. And so if I try and open the post and I'm really distractible, I can ask myself, okay, what's actually going on there? And if I work out that that's what it is, I can then start to kind of just gently challenge that. What's the likelihood of this? Well, I'm normally quite careful when I park. It's not impossible that I've got a parking fine, but it's hopefully not very likely. And challenge, and even if I did get a parking fine, what would I do then? And there's usually ways to handle these things. And I can reassure myself that there are courses of action. It's not the end of the world if I get a parking fine, and it's not the end of the world if I get a parking fine that where the price goes up because I didn't pay it within 60 days. If you can work out exactly what's tripping you up, exactly what is making you need to get distracted, that's immensely helpful. Because if you can address those worries in yourself, you may find that you're just more capable of staying on the task at hand when you don't have whatever fear or worry it is hanging around underneath. So work out why you're trying to avoid it, work out what's hard about it, and then work out what you can do to make it easier. Maybe you can bring in a system of opening your post 3 times a week. And it's somewhere to start, and it will help to avoid that overwhelm. Maybe you can ask your best friend if you can turn up at her house with a bag full of unopened post and go through it together and deal with whatever arises with humour and support.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Think of all the sleep hacks you've ever heard. You could spend years trying them all, or you could instantly transform your sleep with Boll & Branch. They make the softest, most breathable bedding you'll ever feel. And it's all 20% off. That's their best sale of the entire season. Millions of sleepers love their buttery soft sheets, airy blankets, cloud-like duvets, and so much more. And you can try all of them for 20% off with promo code BUTTERY20. So hurry to bollandbranch.com today. That's BOLL and branch.com. See site for details.
And if your distraction is coming about because, for instance, you're bored, there are certainly things you can do to help with that. I find that I not only get more done if I have peppy music on, but I can actually stick with the task for longer if I have peppy music on, because then I'm having a bit of a dance as I sort through whatever pile I'm sitting in front of. It keeps my brain busy. I might sing along. I might have nostalgic memories from when I was a teenager in a nightclub dancing to that song. That can keep me focused. Similarly, some people listen to audiobooks when they are decluttering and dehoarding. That can be great if if there's a story that you're really engaged with, then having that playing and saying, maybe even say to yourself, I can only play that audiobook when I am sorting through stuff. And then as the story gets better and better and you're dying to know who did the murder, you'll have to do more and more decluttering just to hear the next bit. That might be good. I might need to get an audiobook. But also, if you're getting bored, maybe you're doing too much of the same. Now, I know decluttering can sound samey from room to room, that you have to sort out what you're keeping, what you're donating or selling, what you're throwing away, and then do the practicalities of it, and then find places for things, all of that. And of course, that's roughly the same process throughout the house. But it's very different working in different rooms with different stuff. Sorting out clothes is different to sorting out old food. which is different to sorting out bathroom products. And so if you're finding that you're getting really distracted and you've been working on the same spot for a long time, and what a long time means is different to different people. For some people it might be a week, for some people it might be 6 months. Then tomorrow, work in a different bit of your house. Work on a different pile of stuff. You don't have to. It's good to complete tasks because I think we can measure how we're doing a bit better and we can see results a bit better if we do stay on the same kind of course of action. But if staying on the same course of action is actually preventing you from making progress, then mix it up a bit. Work in your bedroom for the next week. Tidy the kitchen for the next week. You don't have to force yourself to sit in the same spot you've sat in for the last 100 days just because you've started it and so you're going to bloody well finish it. That kind of determination is great, but if it's getting in your way, then that's no good to you at all. And also be realistic with your expectations. It may be that you're getting distracted because you're not seeing the progress you hope to see. Maybe you hoped for better things. Maybe you thought that after the amount of work you've done, you'd see a more dramatic result than you have seen. I can certainly relate to that. I seem to be able to get bags and bags and bags and bags out of the house. And then I come back in the house and it looks the same. And I know it isn't the same. And as I always say, all progress is progress and all of that. But if you're expecting to see something dramatic and you don't, then you'll get disheartened and then you won't be focused. You will be distracted because you're disappointed in yourself and you're losing faith in the process and you're losing confidence in yourself. The other thing you need to be realistic about is how much you can really do. If you schedule 4 hours of sorting without a break, then of course you're going to get distracted. Nobody could do that. Nobody could. I used to smoke. I don't smoke anymore, but I used to smoke. And one weirdly good thing about cigarettes is it gives you an excuse for a break. Most smokers are addicted to nicotine, and so every half hour, every hour, every couple of hours, it depends on the smoker, you need to take yourself away from where you are and get your hit. And I found that when I stopped smoking, something I missed was those forced breaks. So I try and carry on having that break as if I was still a smoker. So if I'm getting tired, if I'm getting distracted, if I'm getting disheartened, that can be a sign for me that it's time to take 10 minutes and just put myself somewhere else for 10 minutes and then come back to it with fresh eyes. Because then, I don't know, it clears my mind. Whereas if I force myself to keep going, then I'm hating it more and more and more with every minute that passes. And of course I'm going to get distracted. Of course I am. I'm human. Nobody can work for extensive lengths of time without breaking. A lot of people can't do 30 minutes without a break, and that's fine. If you look at the sweary language coming up, if there are little ears listening, if you look at the Unfuck Your Habitat book and process, she advocates having what she calls 2010s, where you work for 20 minutes and stop for 10, then work for another 20 minutes and stop for 10. I try more to do kind of 25 fives, roughly. I don't want to be taking 10 minutes break every 30 minutes. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think for me, a 10-minute break after only doing 20 minutes, I might drift off the task at hand altogether then. So I prefer to go a bit longer, but you have to work out what works for you. Everybody's different. Some people might be able to do 45 minutes straight as long as they then have a 15 or 20 minute break. Some people might do 20 minutes and need to stop then. And this should never be a stick that you use to beat yourself with. This should be a learning exercise. How do I work best? And we've all been kind of forced within workplaces, within schools, to think that we start at 9 and we finish at 5, and we should be productive for that entire time. And that is not realistic for anybody. And if it doesn't work at work and it doesn't work at school, it certainly won't happen when we're doing something we maybe hate even more than those things, like decluttering and dehoarding. Work out your own patterns. And rather than saying, I'm so rubbish, I can only work for 15 minutes at a time, think, oh wow, 15 minutes seems to be my peak time. So now I know that I will structure my days accordingly. And I seem to work best with a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break, and I will test a few of those things out. I'll do some 15 minutes and test some different break lengths out and see it as an experiment. Jan Eppingstall, who has been a guest a couple of times now, calls it kind of developing curiosity. In the CBT I had, we talked about it as an experiment, but it's the same thing. Rather than saying, I have a set way that I have to do this, go into these tasks saying, okay, let's see. Let's see what happens if I do this. Let's see what happens when I do that. And of course, just to confuse things, this is ever evolving. It may be that right now you can do 15 minutes max, and in 12 months' time you can do 30. Or it might be the other way round. Maybe you can do 45 minutes without a break now, and for some reason in 6 months you can't manage more than 20. It's completely fine. We have to keep an eye on these things. Don't stick to something just because it used to work. Don't stick to something because you believe that's how it should work. Instead, keep an eye on yourself. See what happens when you try and push yourself further than you're really comfortable. Because that's how we learn. And then instead of saying, I'm useless because, turn it into, I am best when. And for me at the moment, I am best when I do about 25 minutes dehoarding and then 5 or 10 minutes break. And then back to it for another 25 minutes. Think of it as optimizing your process rather than any kind of negative thinking about giving in or anything like that. No, you're efficient and you're optimizing your process. That's the phrase for the week. If anybody questions you, just say, no, sorry, I can't do that. I'm too busy optimizing my process. In just 1 second, I'll give you my top tip of the week. In the meantime, please do subscribe to the podcast, review it, 5 stars would be amazing, and share it with your friends or anyone who might be interested or who might benefit from it. It all really helps. To find more ways to support the website, the podcast, and my overall dehoarding project, go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support. Now, back to your top tip. So my top tip this week is about giving yourself a break, and it is let yourself enjoy what you enjoy. Much as I do love reading about self-improvement, I hate it when it gets preachy about how you'd have plenty of time if you only never watched TV, ever, or saw your friends or did anything. Nobody's got time for that. Or if it says your life would be fine if you never ate chocolate again. Or if somebody says you listen to what music? Oh my God, that's so out of fashion. It may be because I'm in my 40s now, but I care less and less what people think, and that is thoroughly healthy, I have to say. Give yourself a break, especially as a reward for dehoarding progress. Do what you want to do. If that is skipping around the park in your bare feet, then go skip around the park in your bare feet. Chances are it isn't that, but if it is, do it. There is enough difficulty in life without trying to mould yourself into somebody you're not. Chances are, and I say this having had contact with a number of you listeners, chances are you're brilliant, because people I've spoken to as a result of this podcast have been brilliant, and you're a listener too. So you might well be brilliant. Don't let other people get in the way of what you want to do. If you want to stick the TV on and watch some trash, may I recommend Married at First Sight Australia, then just do it. Not everything has to be cerebral. Not everything you put in your mouth has to be organic, homegrown, home-baked goodness. Sometimes a Mars bar and Married at First Sight Australia is what we need for our soul, and that is fine. So thank you for listening, and I will speak to you next week. Thank you for listening to the Overcome Compulsive Hoarding podcast. You can find more online at overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk. You can find me on Twitter at @thathoarder and on Facebook at Overcome Compulsive Hoarding with That Hoarder. To find out more about how you can support this podcast and the overall project, go to overcomecompulsivehoarding.co.uk/support, and do subscribe to this podcast so you make sure you don't miss any future episodes.
Now on Broadway, An Enemy of the People is a New York Times Critics' Pick. Jeremy Strong is one of the great actors of his generation, hails the Chicago Tribune. In a performance the Wall Street Journal praises as powerfully affecting and bitterly funny. Michael Imperioli sets off sparks, cheers The Hollywood Reporter. Victoria Pedretti is luminous, raves variety. From director Sam Gold and playwright Amy Herzog, An Enemy of the People is urgent, electrifying, and haunting, declares USA Today. An Enemy of the People on Broadway through June 16th only.